It's no secret that Marvel's Spider-Man has become one of the most impactful IPs in all of gaming. Its effect is still being felt by many gamers to this day. Insomniac Games was able to deliver successful titles on their depiction of the superhero back in 2018, along with a standalone expansion in Miles Morales in 2020. It's been clear that a full-fledged sequel was on its way and there was always room for improvement. With everything that we have learned in regards to Marvel Spider-Man 2 and the expectations that were set en route to launch, the question remained, has the sequel lived up to the expectations set? Let's talk about it. Marvel Spider-Man 2 picks up right where the ending to its predecessor left off. You find out that Harry Osborn is the host to a symbiote which has allowed him to be able to have a second chance at life. Miles is having a difficult time managing the responsibilities of saving the city as Spider-Man while also being himself, while simultaneously trying to figure out what to write for his college essay, and on top of that is also plotting his revenge against Martin Lee, the man who killed his dad, Jefferson Davis. Peter Parker is trying to adjust to life in his mid-20s now that he no longer has his Aunt May, while simultaneously developing his relationship with his love life Mary Jane Watson and reconnecting with his best friend Harry. Along the way, you come across characters like Norman Osborn, Dr. Kirk Connors, aka the Lizard, Kraven the Hunter, and the most anticipated one, Venom. Graham Phillips did a great job bringing Harry Osborn to life, and Laura Bailey was amazing as MJ. Yuri Lowenthal did an excellent job exuding the humor of Peter Parker while expressing the aggressiveness and violent tone of Spider-Man with the symbiote suit. Some of the dialogue he said blew me away that in the end I was in awe of his performance. Jim Pieri was fantastic as Kraven the Hunter, expressing the tenacity and killer instinct so beautifully that is synonymous with the Hunter. I was so amazed with his acting that he is one of the few individuals in the cast who I believe stole the frickin' show. As far as Tony Todd with his role of Venom, if you have yet to play the game, I won't go into too much detail, that way you can experience it for yourself. What I will say is that if you thought what you saw in the trailers was insane, you're going to be in for one hell of a treat. All in all, the cast did a wonderful job bringing life to their respective characters. The open world of New York City is not only nicer in comparison to its predecessor, but it's also much bigger as well. Back then, you could only explore New York itself. In the sequel, the city has been expanded with the inclusion of Queens and Brooklyn. They are pleasant additions to the setting which allow for more exploration. From visiting Peter's old high school in Queens to visiting Miles's educational setting of Brooklyn Visions Academy to also seeing the suburbs and downtown areas of both districts, roaming around there have resulted in beautiful sightseeing. While it is a bummer that the likes of Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty are still off limits, it's still great to see more land be opened up to be explored as is. Whether you're swinging around the city during a sunset or flying around in a dark, rainy night with many buildings and skyscrapers lighting up beautifully, New York City in Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a great upgrade from the first game. There's also a lot of activities to do in the open world, from gathering sand crystals to uncover the story of Flint Marko to surviving an illusion made by Mysterio. There's plenty to do. However, when you play enough to get a general consensus of what you have to do, you'll realize that there's little to no variety. Basically, you have to survive a horde of enemies in a certain amount of time. It was something that I wasn't high on, but at the same time, it was nice to have something worth doing to keep me busy outside of the main story. As far as the side missions go, I was genuinely pleased with what I've experienced. Whether you're tracking down a man who dubs himself to be the Flame, or just getting to know the citizens around the city, there's a lot to indulge in. So much so that specific ones had me very emotional. If you've played them, you'll know exactly what I mean. The missions served a purpose this time around to show what it means to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man while also hinting at what's to come in the future of Marvel Spider-Man. The gameplay mechanics are a tremendous upgrade from its predecessor. You could still wall run and web swing at high speeds, but the addition of web wings is where things get even better. You're now able to soar across districts and possibly across the city with these things. Insomniac accommodated the use of these by implementing wind tunnels and air vents, blowing air upward that will allow you to soar at even higher speeds when soaring through all the rings in complete succession. And on top of that, they've also allowed the opportunity to slingshot yourself from one location to another. There are specific markers around the map where you could go to for a launch point, but all in all, you can pretty much slingshot yourself at any location that you please. When you combine that with the web wings and your air tricks, on top of that, upgrading them to have more momentum, you'll be flying across New York City at breakneck speeds like the Spider-Man you've wanted to play as. The web wings are so useful and fun to use that you also feel like Superman in a sense. With how much there is to use to traverse the city, web swinging in Marvel Spider-Man 2 has become the best it has ever been. The gadgets in Marvel Spider-Man 2 are nice to use, however, it's not perfect. In Marvel Spider-Man, you had a total of 8 different gadgets to choose from that would allow you to approach enemy bases either in stealth mode or going in loud. In the stealth aspect, you could shoot a trip mine to a wall or directly at an enemy. You could shoot a shot of the impact web for them to stick to wherever they land. No matter what, they would be eliminated one by one from you going in dark. In the sequel, you have 4 gadgets, if you exclude the web shooters. Stealth in a way has been eliminated by the use of creating your own web lines. While it is a nice addition, there's no variety to you completing enemy bases as a stealthy spider. The decrease in quantity for the gadgets is remedied by you having web abilities. Whether you're slicing enemies up with the Iron Spider mod or yanking a group of enemies with the symbiote, they do their job of supplying enough power to your enemies when your gadgets are unavailable. On top of that, the gadget select layout is more streamlined and easier to navigate to, therefore is now much easier to access them and use them on the fly. The suits in the sequel are also phenomenal. Not only do some fan favorites across Peter and Miles make their return, but newer ones have been introduced as well. Whether you're dressing up with both variations of the Amazing Spider-Man suit as Peter or dressing up with the Family Business and 2099 suits as Miles, there's so much to choose from. My personal favorite from Peter is the Anti-Venom suit, whereas my favorite from Miles is the Black Panther inspired suit. What's even better is there are color variations for the majority of the suits. They are incredible, and what makes it all the more wonderful is they're not locked behind a paywall. In any video game, a publisher would charge the consumer $15 to $20 for a cooler looking cosmetic. It's great to see that isn't the case with this game, and you could just earn them by simply grinding it out. All in all, the customization of suits, while it's not staggering, it is a welcome upgrade. Insomniac has done so much to ensure Spider-Man 2 utilized the hardware capabilities of the PlayStation 5 to its fullest. There are 2 graphical modes, Fidelity and Performance. Fidelity mode ensures the highest quality with the game targeting 4K at 30 frames per second. In Performance mode, the game goes for a target resolution of 1440p with 60 frames per second. However, depending on the scenario in-game, it might fluctuate to 1080p. This time, the developer has decided that regardless of which mode you enable, you get ray tracing all across the board, which looks great. If you happen to have a display that supports a 120Hz refresh rate, the game will target 40 frames per second on either mode, even if the resolution has to be dialed back. On top of that, you get additional options to decide if you want the game to run at an uncapped frame rate or at a smooth frame rate. I played through the whole game on my 1440p LG Ultra Gear monitor with my first save file on performance mode with the frames uncapped and with variable refresh rate enabled. I also did a second playthrough with the same graphics settings but on fidelity mode. I didn't seem to notice any dips in resolution or frames, and even if I did, it most likely happened early on in my playthrough. The game also does an excellent job of utilizing the SSD that's built into the PS5. You have the option to fast travel to any specific spot on the map. Once you've held down the button to initiate a fast travel, you'll swoop in a second. I am not exaggerating when I say that. There were a few moments where loading specific scenes were a bit longer than expected, but that's just me nitpicking. If you want a more detailed overview of its overall performance, you could check out Digital Foundry. I'll provide a link to those specific videos in the description below. All in all, optimization for this game has been impressive, and if you're unsure on which mode is worth playing on, it really comes down to your preference. Regardless of which mode you choose, you're guaranteed to get great performance, provided you have the display needed to support the options that the game offers. Insomniac games have cemented themselves to be PlayStation's MVP in this console generation. Every video game they've developed for the PlayStation 5 has offered enough for you to take advantage of that can deliver a quality experience. Whether it was either Spider-Man or Ratchet and Clank, they've delivered every single time, and it's no different with Spider-Man 2. While its side activities were pretty repetitive and its quantity of gadgets have diminished, it has been remedied with other features that allow the sequel to play it safe this time around. From its addicting gameplay mechanics to its beautiful and expanded open world to its outstanding story, Insomniac have accomplished a triumph with Marvel's Spider-Man 2. It amazes me to see them deliver high quality single player experiences every single time while simultaneously working on other projects that they currently have in the pipeline. You can tell that the men and women there are huge fans of the web slinger, to which they poured their heart and soul into making this game to ensure that it lived up to the hype. And it makes me even more excited for what's to come with Marvel's Wolverine. If you're looking for a game that has a compelling story or a game that provides quality gameplay in a beautiful open world, you're gonna get your money's worth with Marvel Spider-Man 2. It is one of the greatest superhero video games ever made.